My name is Liam O'Connell. I've been a park ranger in Yosemite National Park for 7 years. I know every trail, every bend in the Merced River, every hidden corner of the giant sequoias, like they're extensions of my own body. But the Whispering Clouds National Park, that was different. Located in the remote northwestern corner of Washington state, it was a labyrinth of towering peaks, dark forests, and dark legends that the locals whispered in hushed tones. I received the assignment reluctantly. A disappearance. A young, inexperienced park ranger named Ben, missing for 3 weeks without a trace. My boss, a burly man with sun-baked skin and a weary gaze named Silas, handed me the map. He seemed older, wearier than I remembered. The worry was etched on his face, a stark contrast to his usual impassive demeanor. Silas simply said, "Liam, you're the best we've got. Handle this quickly." He didn't need to say anything more. The seriousness in his voice, the urgency in his eyes. I knew this was more than just a simple disappearance. The journey to Whispering Clouds National Park was long and solitary. The road, little more than a rutted dirt track, gradually dissolved, giving way to an oppressive silence, broken only by the rumble of my old Jeep. The landscape changed dramatically. The lush green of Yosemite was replaced by a somber, almost menacing green, punctuated by twisted trees and clouds that seemed to hang dangerously low, giving the park its ominous name. I arrived at the base camp at dusk. The silence was deadly. The absence of life was terrifying. The only sound was the wind howling through the trees, a sound that seemed to whisper disturbing secrets to me. Ben had left his camping gear almost untouched, except for a small, rusty hunting knife tossed beside his backpack, a knife that wasn't his. I found the last entry in Ben's journal. The handwriting was shaky, almost illegible. It spoke of a presence, a feeling of being watched, of silent footsteps in the woods. He mentioned a dark figure, a silhouette moving between the trees, something that wasn't human, something that was hunting him. The last sentence was the most disturbing. They want what I found. Fear, cold and sharp, hit me like a punch to the stomach. I lit a fire, the light flickering weakly against the dense shadows of the forest. It was a visceral, primal fear, a survival instinct that told me I should never have come here. But I was committed. I had to find Ben, and I had to find out what he had found. The next morning, the mist hung heavy, clinging to the trees like a shroud. The air was thick with the smell of damp earth and decaying leaves, a scent that prickled my nostrils and sent a shiver down my spine. The silence was broken only by the occasional snap of a twig, each sound amplified in the oppressive stillness. Ben's campsite felt even more desolate in the harsh light of day. The rusty hunting knife, glinting faintly, was the only clue left behind. It wasn't Ben's style. He preferred a sturdy Bowie knife. The park itself was a character in this unfolding horror. Ancient, towering Douglas firs clawed at the sky, their gnarled branches intertwining to form a claustrophobic canopy. The ground was uneven, treacherous, littered with fallen logs and hidden crevices, a maze designed to disorient and trap. The local legend spoke of a malevolent spirit inhabiting these woods, a creature that fed on fear and despair, a creature known only as the Whisperer. I spent the day following Ben's trail, a faint path worn into the earth. It led deeper into the heart of the forest, winding through dense thickets and across gurgling streams. I found small, scattered clues, a torn piece of his uniform, a broken branch, a single muddy footprint that wasn't Ben's. The footprint was larger, more brutal. As dusk approached, I found a small, makeshift shelter Ben had constructed. Inside, more of his journal entries, frantic and desperate. He'd been tracking something large and elusive. He described its movements as silent, almost supernatural, its presence an invisible weight pressing down on him. The last entry mentioned a hidden cave, a place where the Whisperer resided. The local Native American tribe, the Quinault, had legends about the cave, tales of ancient rituals and dark sacrifices. Silas had hinted at these stories, warning me to avoid the area, but Ben's journal suggested otherwise. He'd been drawn to the cave, seduced by a morbid curiosity and a reckless desire to uncover its secrets. His obsession had cost him his life. My own fear began to grow, not just for my own safety, but for the nature of the evil I was facing. This wasn't a simple search and rescue mission anymore. This was something far more sinister, something that tapped into primal fears, something that felt ancient and powerful. The rusty knife, it felt wrong, somehow ritualistic. The next morning dawned gray and oppressive, the mist clinging to the ancient Douglas firs like a shroud. The air hung heavy, thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying vegetation, a smell that prickled my nostrils and sent a fresh wave of apprehension through me. Ben's last journal entry, a frantic scrawl detailing the location of the cave, was clutched in my hand, its damp paper a stark contrast to the dryness of my throat. This wasn't just a search and rescue anymore. This was a descent into something primal and deeply unsettling. The trail to the cave was barely a trail at all, more a suggestion of a path swallowed by the relentless overgrowth. Thorns snagged at my clothing, branches whipped at my face, and the oppressive silence of the forest was broken only by the occasional, unsettling snap of a twig under my boots, a sound that echoed unnaturally loud in the suffocating stillness. The feeling of being watched intensified. It wasn't just a feeling. It was a palpable presence, a weight pressing down on me, a sense of being observed by unseen eyes lurking in the shadows between the colossal trees. The rustling leaves seemed less like the work of the wind and more like a deliberate, almost mocking symphony of unseen movements. The constant, low hum of the forest, previously a subtle background noise, had become a throbbing pressure in my ears, a relentless pulse of something ancient and malevolent. The air grew noticeably colder as I ventured deeper, the temperature dropping several degrees in what felt like only minutes. The mist thickened, reducing visibility to mere yards, creating a claustrophobic and disorienting effect that amplified the already heightened sense of unease. I stumbled, my footing precarious on the uneven, moss-covered ground, the damp earth squelching beneath my boots. Every shadow seemed to writhe, every gnarled root resembled a grasping hand, and the trees themselves appeared to lean closer, their branches reaching out like skeletal fingers intent on pulling me into the suffocating darkness. Panic, cold and sharp, threatened to overwhelm me, but I pushed it back, fueled by a grim determination to find Ben and uncover the truth behind his disappearance. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of struggling through the dense undergrowth, I found it, a dark opening in the earth, barely visible behind a curtain of clinging ivy and moss. The entrance was strangely irregular, as if gnawed out of the earth by some unseen force. A chill wind, far colder than the already frigid air, gusted from within, carrying with it the unmistakable metallic tang of blood. Hesitantly, I approached, the flashlight beam dancing nervously over the rough stone, revealing a narrow, uneven passage descending steeply into the earth. The air itself felt oppressive, heavy with the scent of damp earth and decay, and that persistent, unsettling sweetness. The metallic scent of blood grew stronger, filling me with a primal dread that tightened my chest. With a deep breath, I entered the cave. The darkness was immediate and absolute, a suffocating blanket that pressed down on me, silencing the world outside and replacing it with an unnatural, suffocating quiet. I switched on my flashlight, its beam a weak, trembling finger of light slicing through the oppressive gloom, revealing the tunnel's rough, damp walls. The whispers started softly, then grew louder, seeming to emanate from the very stones themselves. They were not words, but a cacophony of chilling sounds, a symphony of dread and despair. The whispers of the whisperer. As I descended deeper into the earth, the whispers intensified, weaving a tapestry of chilling sounds that played on my deepest fears. The tunnel twisted and turned, a labyrinthine passage that seemed designed to disorient and trap. The walls were slick with moisture, the air thick with the smell of decay and that ever-present metallic scent of blood. I found more of Ben's belongings scattered along the path. A broken compass, a torn map, a few scattered photographs. One photo showed Ben with a younger woman, her face obscured by shadow, but her hand resting on his shoulder spoke of intimacy. It was a picture that didn't fit the solitary, almost ascetic nature of Ben that I knew. The whispers were not just sounds. They were suggestions, insidious voices that fed on my fears, creating illusions and playing tricks on my mind. I saw shadows moving in the periphery, fleeting glimpses of figures that vanished as quickly as they appeared. My flashlight beam danced nervously, picking up on the uneven surfaces of the tunnel walls. A sense of urgency took hold. I needed to get out, and fast. My time was running out. Suddenly, I heard another sound, a low growl, deep and guttural, that resonated through the tunnel, causing the very earth to tremble. It was not a sound of animal origin. This was something ancient, something powerful, something inhuman. The growls seemed to echo the whispers, adding a physical dimension to the psychological terror. Then, in a small alcove, I found it, a makeshift altar, a crude arrangement of stones, adorned with strange symbols carved into the rock face, symbols that resembled those on the Quinault tribal artifacts I'd studied before my trip. On the altar rested several objects, a collection of bone fragments, a tarnished silver locket, and another rusty knife, identical to the one I found at Ben's campsite. The locket contained a faded photograph. The same woman from Ben's picture, her face now clear. She wasn't just a friend. She was connected to something far more sinister. It became apparent that Ben's disappearance was more than just a simple accident. It was tied to this hidden cave, this ancient ritual, this something else. The whispers intensified. The growl echoed again, closer this time. Time was no longer a suggestion, but a tangible threat. I needed to find Ben, and I needed to understand the purpose of this place and the identity of the woman in the photograph. My pursuit of the truth was now a desperate race against time and an unknown enemy. The subplots of Ben's life and the cave's significance intertwined, intensifying the overall tension. The clock was ticking. The growl echoed again, closer this time, shaking the very foundations of the cave. Panic clawed at my throat, but I pushed it down, forcing myself to think clearly. I had to get out, but I also had to find Ben. His disappearance, I now realized, wasn't random. It was connected to this place, to this ritual, to the woman in the photograph. I retraced my steps, the whispers and growls a constant, terrifying accompaniment. The darkness seemed to press in on me, the shadows writhing with unseen presences. I stumbled, my flashlight beam dancing wildly, illuminating fleeting glimpses of movement in the periphery. Quick shadows, impossible to focus on, that disappeared as soon as I tried to see them clearly. They were playing with me, toying with my fear. Then I saw him, or rather, what was left of him. Ben's body, stripped bare, lay in a small chamber off the main tunnel. He was gone. He was just a husk, desiccated and pale. But more concerning were the strange symbols carved into his chest, identical to those on the altar and those I'd seen in the Quinault artifacts. A wave of nausea washed over me. This wasn't just a killing. It was a ritualistic sacrifice. The woman from the photographs was connected to this. She was clearly involved in the sacrifice. This was no mere accident. It was intentional. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows. Tall, gaunt, and cloaked in darkness, it moved with an unnatural grace, its face obscured by a deep hood. It wasn't the beast that I'd heard. This felt entirely different. The whisperer, the figure spoke, its voice a low, rasping whisper that seemed to penetrate my very soul. He sought knowledge he wasn't meant to possess, it hissed, its words slithering into my mind like venomous snakes. Now, he pays the price. The voice was colder, more refined than the raw guttural growls I'd heard earlier. This wasn't an animal. It was something far more insidious, something intelligent. I raised my flashlight, its beam trembling in my hand, focusing on the figure, hoping to penetrate the darkness and see its face. The figure didn't flinch. It simply watched me, its eyes burning with an eerie, inhuman light. "And you?" it continued, its voice chillingly calm. "You will join him. You've seen too much." It raised its hand, and in its palm, it held the silver locket, the one I'd found on the altar. The photograph inside of the woman was now facing upwards. The woman's face stared back at me, cold and devoid of emotion. This was my turning point. My simple search and rescue mission had morphed into a fight for survival against a force far older and more powerful than I could have ever imagined. The woman, the whisper, the ritual, it all converged, leading to this terrifying confrontation. Terror, cold and paralyzing, gripped me. The figure, the whisperer, advanced, its movements sinuous and unsettling, radiating an aura of ancient evil. I backed away, my flashlight beam dancing wildly, trying to illuminate the chamber, searching for a weapon, any means of escape. There was nothing, just the cold, damp stone, the unsettling whispers, and the looming presence of the figure. My mind raced, desperately trying to formulate a plan. I was trapped, outmatched, and utterly alone. My training, my years of experience in Yosemite's wilderness, felt utterly useless against this ancient, supernatural evil. The woman's face in the locket, cold and impassive, seemed to mock me, a silent testament to the power of this hidden cult. The whisper raised its hand again, and I reacted instinctively, swinging my flashlight as hard as I could. It struck the figure's arm, a glancing blow that sent a jolt of pain through my arm, but it didn't stop the whisperer. It barely seemed to notice. The figure chuckled, a dry, rasping sound that seemed to scrape against the very stones of the cave. I turned and fled. I ran blindly through the tunnels, the whispers and growls pursuing me, the chilling laughter echoing in my ears. I stumbled, fell, scrambled back to my feet, driven by primal fear. The cave was a terrifying maze, its twisting passages disorienting and confusing. But I pushed on, driven by the instinct to survive. I had to get out. I had to escape. I finally stumbled upon a different passage, barely visible, almost hidden. This one wasn't as well-worn. It felt rougher, less frequented. It offered a sliver of hope, a glimmer of light in the crushing darkness. I forced myself through, ignoring the scrapes and bruises, ignoring the pain, driven by a desperate need to escape the clutches of the ancient evil that lurked within the cave. I emerged from the cave, collapsing onto the cold, damp earth, gasping for breath. I lay there for a long time, my body trembling, my mind reeling from the horrors I had witnessed. Ben's sacrifice, the ritualistic killing, the presence of the whisperer, it was all too much to process. The sun was rising, casting a pale, weak light on the landscape. The forest, once menacing and oppressive, now seemed strangely peaceful, almost serene. But the images remained. Ben's lifeless body, the woman's cold face, the chilling laughter of the whisperer. The consequences of my actions, or rather, my inaction, hung heavy in the air. I had escaped, but at what cost? I had failed to save Ben, and I carried the weight of his death and the knowledge of what I had witnessed deep within my soul. The escape from the cave was only the beginning. The physical wounds would heal, but the psychological scars ran deeper, festering in the darkness of my mind. The images haunted me. Ben's lifeless body, the woman's cold stare, the chilling laughter of the whisperer. I was changed, irrevocably altered by my descent into the heart of darkness. My naive worldview shattered, replaced by a chilling understanding of the ancient evils that lurk beneath the surface of the seemingly idyllic world. My return to civilization was jarring. The sounds and sights of everyday life felt alien, muted somehow, lacking the stark reality of what I had endured. The chatter and bustle of the city seemed both overwhelming and insignificant. I was a ghost, a man haunted by horrors that no one else could comprehend. Silas, my boss, met me with a mix of relief and concern. He'd sent out a search party after I'd been gone for so long. He listened, his expression unreadable, as I recounted my ordeal, the chilling details of Ben's death and the sinister ritual I'd witnessed. He knew more than he let on. I realized a grim understanding etched onto his face. The local legends, the whispers of the Quinault tribe. He'd known about the cave, about the whisperer, but hadn't warned me sufficiently. My experience left me with a deep sense of failure. I had failed to save Ben, my friend and fellow ranger. His life, his fate, was indelibly linked to my own. The guilt gnawed at me, a constant, heavy presence. But amidst the despair and self-recrimination, a new determination began to grow, a fierce resolve to bring those responsible to justice. Ben's death would not be in vain. The investigation that followed was arduous. I worked with Silas, combing through evidence, piecing together the fragments of Ben's life and the history of the cult. The woman from the photographs, we eventually discovered, was a descendant of a powerful Quinault family, deeply involved in the ancient rituals practiced within the cave. The Whisperer, we theorized, was not a singular entity, but a kind of manifestation of the cult's collective power, a manifestation of their dark beliefs and practices. Silas, despite his reticence, proved a valuable ally. He had connections within the Quinault tribe and a deep understanding of the local legends and history. His knowledge, combined with my own investigation and the evidence we unearthed from the cave, gradually painted a clearer picture of the cult's activities and their sinister agenda. We had to act quickly before more lives were lost. The quest for vengeance, initially fueled by grief, now transformed into a focused, determined pursuit of justice. The investigation led us down a rabbit hole of ancient history and shadowed rituals. We discovered that the cave wasn't just a site for isolated sacrifices. It was a nexus of power, a place where the cult channeled their dark energies. Their beliefs were rooted in a twisted interpretation of Quinault traditions, a perversion of ancient practices designed to maintain their power and influence. The woman, whose name we discovered was Anya, was not merely a participant. She was the leader, a figurehead who commanded the cult's unwavering loyalty. Anya's lineage, traced back generations, connected her to the tribe's shamans who originally guarded the cave. But somewhere along the way, the power had been corrupted, twisted into something dark and malevolent. Ben's death was not random. He'd stumbled upon their activities and threatened to expose them. We gathered a team, a small, select group of experienced rangers and law enforcement officers briefed on the nature of the threat. They were skeptical at first, but the evidence was compelling. Ben's journal, the artifacts from the cave, the witness testimonies from the tribal elders who knew of the cult's existence, though they had kept it secret for generations. Their silence, it turned out, was born of fear, not complicity. The plan was meticulously crafted, a delicate dance of stealth and precision. We needed to raid the cave, not just to arrest Anya and dismantle the cult, but also prevent any further sacrifices. The risk was enormous. We were entering the lair of a deeply entrenched organization that wielded considerable power and possessed an intimate knowledge of the terrain. The whispers, the growls, the ominous presence I felt within the cave before. Those memories returned with a chilling urgency. We equipped ourselves with specialized gear, night vision goggles, thermal imaging cameras, and advanced communication devices. We studied maps, poring over every detail, identifying potential entry and escape routes. The preparation was grueling, the weight of responsibility immense. We knew the danger involved. The Whisperer wouldn't simply let us leave without a fight. Anya and her cult would defend their sacred space and protect their dark rituals with everything they had. This wasn't just a police raid. It was a battle against a force far older and more powerful than we could comprehend. Failure was not an option. Ben's death had made that clear. Our preparations centered around swiftness and efficiency, minimizing time spent inside the cave. We aimed to strike quickly, apprehend Anya, and secure any evidence that could be used to prosecute the cult. to break its power, and to ensure that no more innocent lives would be taken. This final confrontation was not merely about justice. It was about breaking the cycle of ancient evil, ensuring that the terror wouldn't continue. The raid was executed under the cover of darkness. The moon was hidden behind a thick veil of clouds, plunging the forest into an almost impenetrable blackness. We moved silently, a ghost army cutting through the dense undergrowth, our movements guided by infrared sensors and GPS coordinates. The tension was palpable, a thick, suffocating blanket that weighed down on each of us. The approach to the cave was fraught with peril. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig, sent jolts of adrenaline through our veins. We were trespassing on sacred ground, violating a place of ancient power, and we knew that the cult would be expecting us. The whispers, faint at first, grew stronger as we drew closer, a chilling chorus that echoed through the trees. We entered the cave cautiously, our night vision goggles illuminating the damp, moss-covered walls. The air was heavy with the smell of decay and blood. The same chilling atmosphere I remembered so vividly from my previous visit. The whispers intensified, morphing into a cacophony of terrifying sounds, as if the very stones of the cave were alive with malevolent energy. We moved through the tunnels, our weapons raised, our senses on high alert. The growls, deeper and more menacing than before, echoed through the passages, sending shivers down our spines. We found evidence of recent sacrifices, more bodies, bearing the same disturbing markings as Ben. The horror of it was overwhelming, fueling our determination to end the cult's reign of terror. We reached the main chamber, the heart of the cult's ritualistic activities. Anya was there, standing before the altar, surrounded by her followers. She was beautiful, even terrifying in her serene composure, but her eyes, cold and devoid of emotion, spoke of a darkness that resided deep within her soul. The whisper was present too, a formless entity that seemed to emanate from the very stones of the cave, fueling the cult's powers, feeding off their fear and despair. The ensuing confrontation was brutal. The cult fought with a ferocity born of desperation and dark devotion, but we were prepared. We fought back with precision and determination. The battle raged, a chaotic clash of light and shadow, of good and evil. The cave seemed to amplify the sounds of the battle, creating a deafening cacophony that reverberated through the tunnels. In the midst of the chaos, I managed to confront Anya. Our duel was a test of wills, a clash between reason and madness. I disarmed her, and while apprehending her, I had a vision. It wasn't a hallucination. It was a glimpse into the cave's history, of the original shamans, of the corruption, of the slow descent into darkness. The vision also showed me how the cave's energies could be cleansed, its ancient malevolence suppressed. The climax wasn't just a fight. It was a turning point, a revelation, a glimpse into a greater truth. The whisper recoiled as the cave's energy shifted, its power diminishing, the ancient evil slowly fading. Anya and her followers were apprehended, their reign of terror brought to an abrupt end. The cave, once a place of unspeakable horrors, was sealed, its entrance concealed once more by the relentless overgrowth. The artifacts recovered from the cave, along with Anya's confession, provided irrefutable evidence of the cult's activities, leading to their swift prosecution. Justice, long delayed, was finally served. The aftermath was a mixture of relief and exhaustion. The psychological scars would take longer to heal, but the immediate threat was neutralized. The weight of Ben's death, the burden of guilt I'd carried, began to lift, replaced by a sense of closure, a hard-won peace. The Quinault tribe, freed from the shadow of the cult, began the process of healing and reconciliation. They performed ancient cleansing rituals within the village, seeking to purify themselves from the darkness that had tainted their history. The cave's evil remained suppressed but not fully gone, a reminder of the fragility of good against the enduring strength of darkness. My own recovery was slow, a gradual process of healing both physical and emotional wounds. The memories of the cave remained vivid, stark reminders of the depths of human depravity and the enduring power of ancient evils. But the experience had fundamentally changed me, strengthening my resolve, refining my understanding of the world, and giving me a new perspective on the power of human resilience. Silas and I worked together to implement measures that would help prevent such atrocities from ever occurring again. We enhanced ranger training, focusing on detecting signs of such occult activities. We developed better strategies for collaboration with local Native American tribes, utilizing their knowledge of local legends and folklore. We worked to improve the communication systems that allowed for swifter response times in dealing with emergencies. In the end, it wasn't just about capturing Anya and dismantling the cult. It was about breaking the cycle of fear and violence, ensuring that no one else would suffer the same fate as Ben. The quest for vengeance had given way to a greater purpose: the protection of the innocent, the preservation of truth, and the pursuit of a world where such darkness could not thrive. Years later, I returned to Whispering Clouds National Park. The forest felt different, lighter somehow, the oppressive silence replaced by the natural sounds of the wilderness. The cave remained sealed, a hidden scar on the landscape. I stood at the edge of the woods, a sense of peace settling over me. The memory of Ben's sacrifice still lingered, a poignant reminder of the darkness that lurks beneath the surface. But the victory over Anya and her cult had brought a measure of closure. The fight against the darkness continues, but the victory felt hard-won, and the future, for the first time in a long while, seemed brighter. This is my story, a testament to the darkness that exists in the world, but also a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. It's a reminder that even in the darkest corners, hope can prevail, and that the pursuit of justice, however arduous, is essential. What are your thoughts on the Whispering Clouds? Share your theories and your experiences in the comments below. Let's discuss this haunting tale together. And don't forget to click the link below to see our next chilling story, The Shadow of the Lighthouse. You won't want to miss it. It's a terrifying tale, even more suspenseful than this one.